Have you ever stopped to think that, perhaps, the person staring back at you in the mirror every day isn't exactly who you believe yourself to be? Does that reflected image carry your truths, or just a representation of what you've constructed? Like Neo in the Matrix, maybe we're living in a constructed reality without even realizing it. Friedrich Nietzsche once said that there are no facts, only interpretations, and perhaps this applies perfectly to our relationship with the mirror. Today we'll dive into the depths of this fascinating question. What do you really see when you look in the mirror? A simple copy or your true reality? The answer might completely change how you see yourself. First, I'd like to have a moment of your attention. This is the first video where I introduce myself. I may not appear on screen, but I do have a name. My name is Sandro, and I really enjoy the subject of psychology and how the mind works. I like to think and reflect on what life is. I'm kind of discovering many of these things on my own. That's why I'll make many mistakes, but I'm always seeking to learn and improve the content I create. I just want to share cool ideas that come to my mind with you. An example is today's video topic, which wasn't suggested by any AI but came from books I've read. Of course, I used AI to help me, or else I'd be here for a week writing everything. But the central idea is mine. The idea of talking about the mirrors of the mind came from my own life experience. Sometimes, or rather always, I get confused whether I'm looking at myself or looking at myself. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for your attention, and let's get to the video. The physics and philosophy of reflection. When we position ourselves before a mirror, we participate in one of the oldest and most intriguing rituals of human experience. From Narcissus, who fell in love with his own image reflected in water, to modern psychological experiments, our relationship with reflection has always been loaded with deep meaning. The mirror is, first and foremost, a portal to self-knowledge, but it can also be the door to self-deception. Physics teaches us that the mirror merely reflects the light that falls upon us, creating a laterally inverted image. It's curious to think that we never see our face directly, only through reflections or photographs. This creates an interesting paradox. The image we consider ours is one we never experience firsthand. As Plato would say in his allegory of the cave, perhaps we're only seeing shadows of reality, an idea that the film The Matrix brilliantly explored, where the perceived world was just a digital construction. Ancient Egyptians believed mirrors contained magical properties, capable of capturing the soul. Aristotle, in turn, saw the mirror as a tool for philosophical contemplation. For him, the act of observing oneself allowed a type of distancing necessary for authentic self-reflection. Philosopher Emmanuel Levinas expanded this idea, suggesting that the encounter with one's own face in the mirror is a fundamental ethical moment, a confrontation with one's own otherness. Do we maintain this capacity today, or have we lost ourselves in the superficiality of image? Psychology of reflection and self-awareness. In contemporary psychology, Jacques Lacan's mirror stage describes the crucial moment when a child recognizes their own reflected image. It's the birth of self-awareness, but also the beginning of alienation. The child identifies with an external image that will never completely correspond to their inner being. Like in the nosedive episode of Black Mirror, we begin to confuse our social image with our essence. You've just taken the red pill, and there's no going back to seeing your reflection the same way again. Carl Rogers, pioneer of humanistic psychology, proposed that we develop a social mask that frequently disconnects from our true self. The mirror, ironically, can reinforce this mask. We adjust our hair, rehearse smiles, correct postures. Are we really seeing ourselves or just perfecting our social performance? Contemporary psychologist Brené Brown expands this discussion by exploring how our authentic vulnerability is often hidden by layers of perfectionism in front of the mirror. The reflected image is frequently the one we want to project, not necessarily who we are. The phenomenon of body dysmorphia perfectly illustrates how the mirror can distort our perception. People suffering from this disorder see exaggerated or non-existent imperfections in their appearance. Neuroscientist V.S. Ramachandran, known for his work with phantom limbs and neuroplasticity, demonstrates how our brain can literally reconstruct the body image we see. The mirror, in this case, doesn't reflect objective reality, but a psychologically constructed reality. The mind literally alters what the eyes see, transforming the mirror into an instrument of torture, a theme explored in Darren Aronofsky's film Black Swan. Philosophical and cultural perception. Nietzsche argued that there are no objective facts, only interpretations shaped by our individual perspectives. When we look in the mirror, we don't see a neutral reflection, but an image loaded with all our judgments, expectations, fears, and desires. Philosopher Byung-Chul Han, in his critique of the Transparency Society, suggests that our contemporary obsession with image eliminates all the negativity and mystery necessary for true self-knowledge. The mirror becomes a screen where we project our personal narrative, not simply a reflective surface. In Eastern cultures, particularly in Zen Buddhism, there's a concept called kensho, seeing your true nature. The practice of meditation aims, among other things, to remove the filters that distort our self-image. The metaphorical mirror of Zen doesn't show our external appearance, but reveals our deepest essence, free from conditioning. Like in Spike Jonze's film Her, true connection with oneself often requires abandoning the superficial images we've constructed. The million-dollar question is, can we ever truly see ourselves without these filters? Digital mirrors and the image society. In the era of social media, we've added a new layer of complexity to the question. Digital filters and image editing are modern extensions of the mirror, allowing us to adjust even further the image we project. We create digital avatars that frequently distance themselves more and more from our physical reality. Psychologist Sherry Turkle, in her work on digital identity, warns how our online personas can become more real to us than our offline identity. The Instagram mirror reflects not what we are, but what we aspire to be in others' perception. Exactly like in the Lacey episode of Black Mirror, where social approval becomes a literal currency. Martin Heidegger spoke about authenticity as an existential ideal, living according to your true being, not determined by social expectations. In the context of the mirror, we could ask, are we seeking an authentic image or just conformity with external standards? Contemporary philosopher Susan Bordeaux analyzes how beauty and corporality ideals are inscribed in our bodies through the cultural gaze we internalize. When we adjust our posture or expression in front of the mirror, are we getting closer to or further from our essence? Neuroscience and self-perception. Neurological studies reveal something fascinating. Our brain processes our own image differently from others. We activate specific neural circuits when recognizing our reflection, involving areas linked to identity and self-concept. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio proposes that our sense of self is built in layers, with the bodily proto-self serving as the foundation for more complex constructions of identity. This suggests that what we see in the mirror isn't just a visual image, but a complex neuropsychological process of self-construction. As in the series Westworld, consciousness emerges from the ability to recognize one's own image as part of a continuous narrative. It's like our brain runs a whole separate program just for processing you. The phenomenon known as enhanced self-perception demonstrates that most people tend to rate themselves above average in positive characteristics. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winner, calls these cognitive biases heuristics that have shaped our evolution. Ironically, when we look in the mirror, we often see a more favorable version than objective reality would suggest. Our mind literally edits the reflection to protect our self-esteem, an automatic and unconscious neural Photoshop that reminds us of the concept of false memory explored in the film Blade Runner. Sociological perspective and social control. Michel Foucault tells us about how the external gaze shapes and disciplines us. The mirror can function as an agent of this internalized social control. We see in the reflection not just our image, but the patterns and expectations we've internalized. Sociologist Irving Goffman, in his work on the presentation of self in everyday life, describes how we constantly play social roles, with the mirror being our first rehearsal stage. We adjust our appearance not just for ourselves, but for an imaginary observer we've incorporated into our consciousness. The mirror becomes an instrument of surveillance that we carry with us, a central theme in George Orwell's novel 1984. Finally, perhaps the deepest question isn't what we see in the mirror, but who is looking? Contemporary philosopher Yuval Noah Harari suggests that our consciousness is largely a constructed narrative, not an objective observer. Psychologist and neuroscientist Daniel Seth goes further, proposing that all perception is a type of controlled hallucination, our brain constantly creating models of reality, not simply reflecting it. When we look in the mirror, it's not just the image that might be a construction, but also the observer himself. Like in the film Inception, the copy and reality blend in an infinite game of mirrors, where subject and object are equally fluid. And you? What do you see when you look in the mirror? Your answer might reveal much more about you than you imagine. If this video provoked reflections, don't keep it to yourself. Share your personal experience with this question in the comments. And if you felt we just created a mental connection, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for more content that challenges your perception. Leave your like so we can reach more people with these deep reflections. Remember, in this digital age, your engagement is the mirror that shows me I'm on the right track. Until the next video,